Hello and welcome to Listen and Learn with Sudbury District Restorative Justice. I'm your host, MJ, and today I will be telling you all about the ins and outs of restorative justice. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Now, really quick, just before we get started, let's take a look at the content outline for this presentation. In Section 1, we have what is restorative justice. Building upon that, in Section 2 is restorative justice practices. And finally, Section 3, importance of restorative justice. Let's get started. Section 1, what is restorative justice? Now, of course, you must have heard about this term at least once if you're here. You've made it to our website. Hello, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. But have you ever really sat and thought about what restorative justice even is? You've probably heard it from friends, colleagues, family members, heard it brought up at school or at home or at work. But have you really sat to think about what it means? Let's talk about it. The Oxford Dictionary defines restorative justice as, quote, a system of criminal justice which focuses on the rehabilitation of offenders through reconciliation with victims and the community at large. A little bland and kind of confusing if you ask me. So let's break it down. Restorative. Simply put, that term simply explains the act of fixing or restoring something, usually something broken, like, say, a relationship. Justice, on the other hand, is an amalgamation of the qualities of fairness, equality, moral behavior, lawfulness, and order. We typically associate justice with some kind of punishment. So, putting those terms back together, restorative justice, we can kind of see where the two terms begin to overlap. Let's add conflict into the mix. A conflict occurs, and suddenly something is broken. Someone is hurt for one reason or another. There is a guilty party who has caused the conflict, and an affected party who suffers at the hand of the guilty party. There is something here to be restored in a way that can ensure justice is well served and everyone is able to walk away from the situation changed in a way that everyone can agree to. There are 5 long standing principles of restorative justice: relationship, respect, responsibility, repair, and reintegration. Restorative justice is considered an alternative form of justice. Here at SDRJ, we use several restorative justice practices, as you'll see, such as education, as a way to help heal the harms of conflict rather than traditional punishment. We want to help our youth learn about taking responsibility and accountability for their actions. We explain how their judgment and actions can have a long lasting effect on those they've harmed, and teach them about ways to not only help heal the situation itself, but give them the skills they can use and take with them to hopefully prevent conflict from happening in the future. Section 2, Restorative Justice Practices. Restorative justice practices come into play at different times during the criminal process, starting before a charge is officially laid on the person offending to the time when they're released from custody and navigating the court system. Some examples of restorative justice practices can include one-on-one, face-to-face table discussions between the offender, victim, typically with a mediator in the middle, group table meetings with the victim, offender, their families/supporters, and a mediator, and finally, circles of support, where everyone involved, including community members, can sit with a mediator and discuss the harms of the conflict. These discussions, meetings, and circles of support provide a safe space for everyone who has been impacted by the conflict to speak. This provides an opportunity for everyone's point of view to be heard and a chance for the long process of healing and repair to begin. Here at SDRJ, we also provide conflict management coaching programming for youth who are engaged with the criminal justice system. This program involves a facilitator from our agency and the youth that has offended. And once a week for 6 weeks, we use education to not only help the youth understand the harm they've caused, but to give them a chance to change their future. These programming sessions are tailored to each youth. We go over things such as brain development, conflict management skills, personal development skills, and emotional regulation. The goal of this program is to not necessarily punish the youth for the harm they've caused, but rather give them a chance to learn and grow from the experience and make meaningful change in their lives. We use these restorative justice practices to help these youth build skills for a conflict free future and to allow them the chance to learn how to become a better, kinder, and more thoughtful member of the community that they live in. Section 3. Why is restorative justice important? As we've stated before, restorative justice separates itself from the idea of what we know as traditional justice. It places heavy importance on responsibility, accountability, and a need to repair harms caused. Not only that, but restorative justice practices, as we have seen, allow for an open space for education and growth. Victims are able to heal from the conflict when given a chance to speak about how they were affected by the conflict just as much as the person offended to begin with is allowed. People are able to come together with one common goal in mind: peace. Restorative justice allows offenders a chance to learn and grow from the conflict and are given the opportunity to not only improve as an individual, but as a community member as a whole. Research on restorative justice has found several benefits, such as high levels of participant satisfaction, decreased fear for victims, and reduced recidivism for offenders. Research has also suggested that restorative justice processes may have positive impacts on a participant's overall well being. Here at SDRJ, we have seen what the power of restorative justice is capable of. We've had many success stories of youth whose lives have been changed since going through the restorative justice process. One youth has provided us with a quote on their experience with restorative justice, which I'd like to share with you now. Quote, I believe this program has strongly improved my mental state to better myself and to not cause any discomfort or harm to my peers or surroundings. I feel more put together as a person and mentally because I can properly think through tough situations without impulsively making the wrong decision. This program and the people who help me get me back on track are the sole reason for me feeling the way I do today, and I would like to thank you for all of your duties. End quote. The power of restorative justice is endless, and we are really only scratching the surface. And that brings us to the end of our restorative justice presentation. Thank you so much for listening and thank you for your time. For more restorative justice content, you can find us everywhere and anywhere online at RJ Sudbury. If you have questions or wish to know more, feel free to email us at info@sdrj.ca.